So I would like to go ahead and call to order today's meeting of the Monroe County Election Board. First item of business is the approval of minutes.
We don't have.
Do we have minutes? We do not have minutes. Okay.
We don't have the minutes from the last meeting either, the meeting before. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
So we're down 2 months?
Yep. No, the last meeting and this one.
Oh, okay. Well.
So it'll be 2 at the next meeting, but yes.
Okay. All right, then the first item business is the clerk's update. I'll turn it over to our clerk.
Okay. Good afternoon. I want to make you aware of some clerk dates or voting dates, and I'm going between 2 schedules, so bear with me if I circle back. October 7th is the last day that you can register to vote prior to early voting starting, which leads to October 8th, the first day of early and in-person voting that begins in Monroe County. Of course, I'm sorry for the
Registration, is it by
deadline
noon
to
or is it
register.
the end of the day?
You have to have requested by 11:59 to register to vote.
11:59 on line,
October.
and then 4 o'clock closing in our office.
Thank you.
So that, I'm sorry? That leads me to the first day of early voting, October 8th. Early voting is at the Election Operations, also known as the old Napa Building, 302 South Walnut. And we have previously released the early voting dates and times. October 15th is the deadline for our voter registration office to receive and process a mail-in voter registration form. October 17th is the first day of travel board. October 24th is the last day to apply for a mail ballot. That it must be
It must be received in the office that day.
by the 24th. That makes sense. So the 15th is the last day that you can ask for one. The 24th is the last date that it must be received.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. No, but I'm looking at IEDs and yours.
You're fine.
Thank you, sorry. Okay, November 2nd is the first, October 26th is the first of 2 Saturdays where all counties in Indiana must be open for early voting. November 2nd is the second of the 2 Saturdays where all Indiana counties must be open for early voting. November 4th, we have multiple deadlines, including noon to receive the federal postcard application requesting an email or mailed ballot, and early voting ends at noon on the 4th. And then, of course, November 5th is Election Day. All ballots must be in our office by 6 p.m. to be counted, including mail ballots. And then November 15th is Provisional Ballot Day, and that begins at 12:01. So if you have been issued a provisional ballot, you have until 12:01, until noon, because our meeting starts at 12:01, to cure any provisional ballot that was issued. All of the dates? We're good? Okay. Moving on to the absentee mail update. We, as of the 21st, which is the mandatory date from the federal government that we have to have mailed out all of the absentee and overseas and military mail, on or before that date, 1,969 ballots were mailed out. As of yesterday, 2,726 absentee ballots by mail have gone out.
Nicole, as of today, I did get an update on that. We are at 2,851.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to make the board aware of a ballot printing error that occurred. We have issued a press release for it, and I want to read that into the minutes. Prior to the September 21st, 2024 federally mandated ballot, the Monroe County Clerk's Office mailed out 1,969 absentee, military, and overseas ballots. We are incredibly grateful to not only the Monroe County employees who stepped up to help us, but also our overseas military and absentee workers who assisted in the Herculean effort to meet that federal deadline. On October 1st, 2024, we were notified of 4 absentee ballots that contained a printing error. Staff went to work immediately to resolve the issue by correcting and reprinting the affected ballots. Those 4 voters were notified by mail that they were entitled to cast a new ballot with the correction made. Because the issue was swiftly remedied and contained only those 4 voters, we anticipate no further issues or reports of the ballot printing or any reports of ballot printing errors. We notified the election board as well as the Indiana Election Division of the error and reported that the issue was quickly resolved. Do you have any questions for me? No.
Questions? Nope. No questions.
That would be the end of the clerk's update.
Okay. Are there any public comments related to the clerk's update? Online? No? Okay, then let's move on to item number 4, which is the election central update.
All right, so up first, I have the Bloomington High School North mock election. On Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, we went to Bloomington High School North and held a mock election for the seniors that are going to be voting in the general election this year. They got to see what a polling site would be set up like and go through the process of actually casting and voting a ballot. The registered students got to scan their IDs as they would for checking in, and then any students that were not registered still got their ballot, and then afterwards got registered to vote in the November election. On that day, we had a total of 52 students who casted a vote, and they all were very excited to get to be part of that, and we sent them their results the day after, and they got to hear what the senior class had selected for their president. And then we also had a ton of students that got signed up to work election day voting with the recruiters there as well. And then next I have on is the ABS comparisons. Currently we are looking at ABS comparisons for 2016, 2020, and 2021. At this point in time, in 2016, we were at 1,600 ballots that had been sent out. In 2020, we were at 11,000, and then this year we are at 2,800, so we are up approximately 1,000 from 2016. And then I do have one more item that I wanted to bring up that I didn't have time to add to the agenda this morning. We had training at early voting location this morning, and some of our poll workers are a little concerned about parking as there are going to be more voters coming in this year. We only have the front parking lot, which is a total of 14 parking spots for voters. 6 of those are in the no campaigning zone, and we can only use 2 of them as a handicap accessible parking spots. So in that area, we will only have 8 parking spots for voters. The additional parking for them is behind the convention center in their east parking lot, which then means that they would be having to cross traffic to come over to the building. We are going to meet with Richard Kreider to see if there's some options there to get the whole on-site parking area and just see if we can move the county vehicles that park in that lot over to the convention center parking lot instead.
If I could just dovetail a couple of things that Ms. Kiley said. On the Bloomington High School North mock election, It was an absolutely incredible sight to see these young people getting excited. Now, when Miss Kylie and I first showed up, they were still half asleep, but by the end, we had plenty of hands going up, plenty of questions about the election process or voter registration process. I don't have the gentleman's name other than Matt, but there was the loveliest young man named Matt who came up at the end, and he just said, "Thank you. Thank you for coming. We appreciate that." I'd like to give a shout out to Kylie, Bob White, who showed up and set the machine up, and Kurt Durnall, our Monroe County Republican recruiter, who showed up to register people that were interested in submitting voter registration applications. It was an incredible day. And then as far as the update that Ms. Kylie just issued, when we were given the election operations space that we have now, we were reassured that we would never have an issue with respect to parking for our employees and voters, because we would have that parking behind the Election Operations Center, off to the side and in front. And so I have concerns about my workers and/or voters who have mobility issues. If we only have 8 spaces available to us, we do anticipate better than expected voter turnout. So I am concerned about those, and I am hopeful that we can come to some kind of arrangement. Last year, we even found out, or was it at the end of the primary, where they were actually trying to ticket our workers?
Yeah, so we had a couple of poll workers who walked out and found they were being towed or in the process of being towed, even though they had their tickets on their dash that said election official. That was during the primary. We do have the entire back parking lot behind Napa for our poll workers. So right now it's more of an issue for the voters themselves and making sure that we have plenty of parking for them. In the primary, it worked because we didn't have a ton of people coming in at one time, but the general, we're anticipating at least 25 to 30,000 people coming in there. That's going to be pushing about 1,000 people a day, which is what we did in 2016. And in 2020, we did almost 2,000 people a day. So we just want to make sure that we're able to get them in and out as quickly as possible, but also have safe parking, and so that they're not having to cross a busy street to get to vote.
For the folks that were getting ticketed, was that tickets from the county lot?
They were getting towed because we had been informed beforehand if you
But
didn't have...
From which lot?
From the county back parking lot. They were getting towed from there, and the side lot that there were county vehicles parked in. If there wasn't a tag, or if the towing crew that was working with them didn't see a tag, they were told that they could remove those vehicles because it was supposed to be for county employees only. And there were a couple of them that would point out their tags, and then the drivers would drop their vehicles for them. We've made the signs for their cars bigger this year. They were about half-size sheet of paper, but they were still on a bright piece of colored paper. I have told them this year that they need to be placed directly in the middle of their dash instead of to the side like they were doing.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to work something out to, get some additional spaces for your workers.
We really appreciate working with Richard Kreider. He's awesome at what he does, and he makes sure that we get everything that we need as much as he possibly can. Right now, we're just hoping that we can get more parking for the voters themselves.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the board or the public? Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand online either. So let's go to item 5, which is the Vote Center Study Committee update.
Hello, my name is Stacy Kowalczyk, and I am here for your regular representative who was unable to come today. But I have a short update on where we are. We have been starting work on the actual document for the Vote Center proposals. We have developed a subcommittee with 4 members: Ami Gandhi, who is your regular representative here, Daniela Wheelock, Steve Olin, and myself, to actually write the first draft of the document. We are on our way to do that. We have developed 4 options for the vote center to think about and vote and present to the election board. They are, would you like to hear them, or?
Sure.
Okay. So we have one proposal that one member has put forth, that we do not do voting centers at all. Other people have, and we have not officially voted yet, but we have one that would have 1 vote center per township, so that would be 11 vote centers. We have one option that would be approximately 22 vote centers, which is based on our reading of other people's experience, other counties' experience, and basically dividing their population by the number of vote centers that they have, and that we would need approximately 22 if we were to meet what they were currently doing. And then one that would just keep all of the current polling places as vote centers. And so we are in the middle of developing those and what those would look like, and specifics for the ones that would change, the 2 that would change polling places. So we are in the process of getting that data. It took a while for us to be able to get GIS data, so actually to be able to see where that data is. We have that data now, so we're very grateful. Thank you, Kylie, for all her hard work to make that happen. And so we think we're well on our way to being done at some point in the nearish future. I am hesitant to give a date, but we are certainly making good progress.
So just for clarification, then, what you're working on now is a report that'll make a recommendation, but is it an actual plan for how we're going to implement?
Well, we'll have some elements of the plan. We would like a little bit of collaboration with the election board to get feedback before we put an enormous, those are
Sure.
big documents and require quite a bit of detail. And so we would like to have a proposal first that you would vote yes or no, or which you would prefer, and then we can go and further develop.
Does anyone have any questions for Stacy? I have one more question. In terms of, I don't have the resolution in front of me when the study group was, I guess, commissioned. I vaguely remember a timeline. Do we need to make any amendments to that in terms of extending time? Because it sounds like they're going to want to have a little bit of feedback before they actually finalize.
And I'm pulling up the resolution. I believe it says that they would have a plan by the end of the year.
Does that seem doable?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Great. Then, it's my understanding that we do need to appoint a new member because someone, I guess, resigned or moved.
Yes. On behalf of William Ellis, the chairman of the Monroe County Republican Party, I submit the name of Noel Conyers to replace Danny Shields on the vote center committee.
Okay, is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Well, Stacy, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
I really appreciate the work that the committee's doing, and looking forward to the recommendations.
Thanks.
I just wanted to say, if you want me to spend some time with the vote center committee directly to help them, I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, that's great.
Just because I probably have more time than the 2 of you.
Okay, that'd be great.
So I will just go to the next meeting and try to help where I can.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. On to old business. The first item is the emergency policy.
am going to share a draft if I can.
Hey, can you hang on one second, though, Molly? I think someone's got their hand up online. Oh, but there's an online. Us,
How can you tell? Oh, I see.
because it says their
I
hands
see.
up.
It's Shaw.
It's Ralph Shaw. She might have a comment related to the Vote Center Committee.
Can you unmute and give her the mic? Ralph, did you want to make remarks or ask questions? Okay, like she's not coming off mute.
Ms. Shaw, you have
Oh, there.
permissions. You should be able to enable your mic.
Okay, well, I think we'll move on, and then if Ralph says to unmute and get back on, we'll give her an opportunity to make some comments. So the first item under old business is emergency policy. Molly?
So Kylie and I met on, it was September 4th, and we kind of talked through an emergency plan. Kylie was going to work on getting drafts from other counties, and I know that she's reached out to counties, but everyone's busy with elections right now, so they haven't been able to respond. What I am putting up on the screen is kind of a rough draft policy that incorporates the process for extending poll hours. It will include a petition. This is more of the legal ramifications of an emergency plan. So if the election board approves the filing of a petition to extend the poll hours for some circumstance that arises on election day, this outlines the process of how to do it, and it will also include a fill-in-the-blank petition that county legal would file. What isn't really in the plan yet, and I guess this is a discussion point for the election board, is how, when you say emergency plan, are you contemplating a plan that has procedures in it for natural disasters, power outages, all of that, or is it just the legal process? If it's the first part, I will say that the Indiana Department of Homeland Security publishes a emergency plan that is sent to all emergency management directors for elections. Our emergency management director has received it. It's a really good starting template. The emergency management director said she's happy to sit down with Kylie and myself and work through what parts of that plan works for our county. That hasn't happened yet. So I'm happy to go ahead and schedule that meeting if that's what the election board intends when they say emergency plan.
Yeah, I think I'll just speak for myself and then turn it over to my colleagues, but I think there'd be value in having, it's almost like a contingency plan, so that we can train the folks who are at the polls and have a checklist for them. So if something does happen, they're not scrambling to try and track someone down to figure out what to do next. I mean, we did have the fire situation at a polling place during the primary.
Fire alarm.
Fire alarm, yeah.
There was not a fire at a polling place.
Well, yeah, there was a fire alarm. There was more to it than just an alarm, though, because they did have to go into anyway. But it did disrupt, and it just seems like if there's a contingency plan that we can train people on, it'll just make things simpler, or at least calmer.
Yeah, I will say that we do have a emergency guide that we had drafted for this agenda that we're going over, not for this agenda, sorry, for this election that we are going over right now. We do plan to use it for this election, and it will be trained during the training, which does start next week on Friday. We haven't finalized it yet, but it's just like a simple, if there's a fire, this is the steps you need to take. If there's a tornado, shelter in place, and then all of our polling locations gave a map for an emergency exit or a shelter in place. So they have that as well so that they know where to go.
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing is securing ballots, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Stands how to protect the integrity of the votes.
Yes.
Molly?
I will add that if that's being added to the poll worker training, technically, statutorily, the election board is supposed to approve that training. So that is something I would recommend that the election board see.
Yeah. When do you think we can see that then?
We have the entire packet of all of our training that has not been reviewed by the election board. So, I mean, it would be from beginning to end training that would have to be reviewed.
But, so if it's already written,
It's the same training that we've been doing since the municipal of last year.
and did the prior election board approve it?
Not that I know of. I think it was just created in the clerks and voter registration office, put together, and then trained.
I mean, if it requires approval, it seems like it would be a good thing to be doing now.
Yeah.
And is it in a form that we can see it?
All of it are Word documents that we keep so that we can edit like dates and stuff. So we could do that. Also, we do have most of it printed because we're starting to get everything prepared for the training next week. So we could also bring it together and get it to you guys in a document through email if you would want. Just depends on how you guys want to review it.
But if I understood what Molly said, the board needs to approve.
Correct.
And I'm looking up the statute right now, so I can cite it, but I'm certain it says approval, and if that's the case, you would not be able to approve it via email.
Judith?
Well, I don't know what our discussion's going to be with regard to updating the list for poll workers, that because they have till October 15th, maybe we could coordinate those two things.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking of because I have that on new
We'll have to
business
get
as well.
But we would have to come together for to look at that.
Okay.
So we may have to do that anyway, so if we could combine those two things in a additional meeting, should we have the opportunity and our calendars allow us to get together.
I think we are to the place where we're going to have to meet several times between now and Election Day.
We do also have to remember on that part, it's because of the recruiting process. We are recruiting people up to the day of, and so they would have to be approved before they could work. So that's one of the reasons why that was on for new business.
So do we have it tentatively planned to meet on the 15th?
That's just, I had put it on as a discussion so that we could decide that today.
I'm available the 15th.
I can be available, hold on. On the 15th, I'm going to presume that this time works because we typically meet at 1 o'clock. And are we still discussing the emergency plan, or are you moving?
No, if you have comments on the emergency plan, go
The,
ahead.
the only thing that I wanted to say, and Kylie, if you'll prompt me tomorrow to get it to you, the Secretary of State approves of the, we were talking about the template to extend voting hours, of a template that was used by Wayne County, which I believe is Richmond, Indiana, when they had to extend polling hours. That is the example that they gave me, and so I would like to incorporate that because it already has the blessing of the Secretary of State's office.
Well, if it's a template that you can work off of, then that makes sense. But I mean, it's got to be tailored for Monroe County.
Right.
Yeah.
And the template that I incorporated was previously prepared by county legal, and so I'm certain that Mr. Baker also got it. The template is based off of the statute. It's a petition it alleges all the facts that the court would need to find. The one that I used is specific to Monroe County because it was prepared in the past for Election Day in case it was needed.
Great. Okay.
So are you good for that
Yep.
time as well? So 1 o'clock on October 15th?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll review the
Poll
both
workers
items.
and the emergency plan, okay.
All right, any other comments on the emergency policy then? If not, on to the social media policy.
So this is another policy Kylie and I had the opportunity to sit down and talk about on September 4th. After I spoke with Kylie, I reached out to our technical services department to kind of make sure we were complying with all their requirements for social media accounts because they are tasked with the responsibility of making sure all of those accounts are archived according to access to public records and things like that. In speaking with the technical services department, they did express a few concerns that have come up county-wide, and those concerns entail, so the way Facebook is set up, in order to have a business account, which is what the, like an Election Central Facebook account would be, it has to be tied to an individual person's personal Facebook page. And then business managers have to be assigned. And one issue that we've ran into in the past is if it's tied to someone's individual Facebook account and then that person for some reason leaves county government, it inhibits our access to that account. And so I know that the TSD department has been speaking with Facebook and they're trying to work on centralizing all the business accounts to eliminate these concerns. TSD is not going to be able to work that out until next year, so I don't know if I'm seeking guidance from the election board. Do you want me to move forth with working on this social media policy to get it up and running for this election? Is this something that you want for future elections? What is your preference?
Well, Facebook is just one platform.
Correct.
So I would encourage you to keep working on the policies. Because, I mean,
I think the two platforms that Kylie and I were specifically looking at was Facebook and Instagram, since Instagram is connected to a Facebook account, but I don't think that you have to exclusively have a Facebook account to have an Instagram account.
Correct.
don't know, but I think that might be true because I don't have, but I do have Instagram. Okay, so I would encourage you to continue working on it and see, because I mean, you know, when there's fast-moving information, it'd be nice to be able to use those modern communication tools.
Since it sounds like you're having a meeting on the 15th, I can have a draft for consideration on that date.
Great. Any comments, questions from members of the public? Nope. Okay, great. We'll move on to the next item, which is the reports policy for the, yeah. Is that you as well, Molly?
I think so. Let's see. So I do have a draft policy too, and I think this will probably be ready if once I get some guidance for consideration or approval by the election board on the 15th. So this policy would only apply to computerized list that are stored in the SVRS system. It does not apply to individual voter requests. There is a statute, so it's Statute 37276C that says the election board may either adopt a policy that allows disclosure or that does not allow disclosure. There isn't really a middle ground. You either give it to everyone or you give it to no one. This policy, and I will send it out to the election board. I was working on it just right before the meeting. The policy, based on prior guidance I drafted, is to allow for disclosure. Now, Kylie was able to provide me a sample walking list, which is what is most commonly requested from this. And that list contains the address of individuals, the phone number of individuals, the date of registration, and then a voting history. According to opinions issued by the Access to Public Records and the Code, the only thing that would be eligible to be redacted from this list would be full social security numbers, which this list does not contain. So if you are adopting the policy to disclose this list, just so everyone is on the same page and it's clear, this would be a disclosure of addresses and phone numbers, date of registration, and all the information contained in that list. It would not, there'd be no redactions. The policy provides that, and this is going to be a question as for the election board, that the list can be or requests can be submitted in person, by mail, or via email. In some policies that I had reviewed, that I could find online, there was a requirement that so there's a state form that an individual making a request for this kind of information has to fill out, and that state form has a clause in it that basically says that you won't use it for commercial purposes, or the information for commercial purposes. Some of the policies require that the requester provide the form with a wet ink signature, that no scans would be accepted. And all that does is make it so that a requester cannot request the information via email. And so I can't find any statutory requirement that there has to be a wet ink signature. And so I guess, is it the preference of the election board that these requests can be accepted in person or via fax or email?
Do you have an opinion? Nicole?
I would assume we want to make it as easy as possible for people to get that information, so I have no problem with that anymore. They're using those signatures on emails or whatever now, so.
You can register to vote online.
Right. So.
Okay,
that
so
would
then
be my
I
position.
will
As
include.
long as it has the option where they're doing a digital signature and make it clear, yeah.
And the state form is provided via the state, and it is a fillable PDF, I believe, so I think you could do a digital signature, but I will double check on that. And then I guess the last bit of election board guidance that I will need to provide you a finalized draft for consideration is whether you want to charge requesters for this information and how you would like this information to be provided for them. In the past, it sounds like we were able to provide the list to individuals on a flash drive. I've checked with TSD to see if that policy or procedure causes them any concern, and the guidance that I received from the technical service department was that they don't necessarily have an issue with that as long as the requester is producing a flash drive in its original packaging and it's untampered. This is a policy that they use with other departments. For example, if an attorney was requesting a precipice from the courts, I can bring in a flash drive as long as it's brand new and there's no reason to believe that it's been tampered with. So I know in the past there might have been some concerns recently about providing that information on a flash drive, and so I guess I just wanted to gauge election board preference on whether you'd like to use that policy and allow for the production or providence of the records on a flash drive or jump drive.
What's the alternatives?
Paper copies.
These are like 300-400 page walking lists.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, I'm okay with using those drives if we do adopt a policy that requires them to, show a brand new device that's not been opened. Because normally I would not recommend letting anybody use flash drives on government computers. But I think in that scenario that there's some protections there. And then if somebody wants the printout, I think you definitely should charge whatever the normal, copy rates are for that.
Could we then also address bulk requests? So for example, a request that would involve 5,000 or 6,000 pages, which we have had. We're talking about a lot of manpower, a lot of time. So there has to be some kind of exclusion where maybe they go directly to the SVRS to get the information they're requesting as opposed to relying on us when of course, these records requests tend to come in right around elections when we are already
Nicole,
running on 100.
on that, you can only request it from the county that you're wanting it from. The state can't print anything from another county, and another county can't print for another county.
So then
So
I
it would have to be through our office.
hope then that we could limit the request to a certain amount of pages, because that's our resources, our time, our manpower.
Well, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understand the state law on this, I mean, it's all or nothing. I mean, I don't think we have the
Yes.
ability to say, well, you can request this information, but only so much of it. I mean, you've got to make it available or not available.
Yeah, the state law references that it's an all or nothing, so allow disclosure or do not allow disclosure, and if you allow disclosure, it has to be allowed in a non-discriminatory policy.
How fast would you have to respond to that request?
So I think what happens is access to public records would govern, so you would have to acknowledge the request within the statutorily allowed time frame, which that time frame depends on how the request was received, and then you must produce the records in a reasonable time. So for example, if the statutory requirement is respond within 7 days, that doesn't mean you have to produce the records within those 7 days. You have to say, hey, we got your request, we're working on it, and then you have a reasonable time thereafter to produce.
Hopefully that would help a little bit if your office is super busy, that as long as they let them acknowledge the receipt, then you'll have time to try to get it together for that.
Do we have the ability to say the only way we'll produce it is electronically?
I can look into that and have the guidance for you on the 15th.
I'm not sure I would want to do that, but I could, where it becomes a major time suck.
Particularly, yes, depending upon the time that you are making the request, it could be a huge burden undue on the clerk's office.
On that, with the flash drive, the only thing that I'm concerned on that is if there is somebody that comes in that doesn't have access to go get a flash drive. We have some in our office, but then we would have to charge for that too if we're going to charge for paper.
Sure. Okay, so we'll have a policy to review then on the 15th of October. Is that right? Okay. Is there any public comment on the VRG reporting? Looks like we have someone has a hand up online. Can we enable them to unmute? It's E.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Eric Ost, and I appreciate everyone's thoughtful consideration of this particular policy. I would like to suggest that you consider making these reports available using a secure file transfer protocol, such as Box, Google Drive, Dropbox. That is oftentimes used for transfer of documents in the legal profession as well as other professions. And I think that would suffice to protect and ensure the security of the transfer, as well as the efficiency in regards to time required by election office staff. I have some experience with that, and I would be happy to offer my assistance in drafting an addition to the policy, work with Ms. Turner King and TSD, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Eric. Does the county have any policies regarding the use of commercial platforms like that, like Dropbox and others?
If you're asking me, it is a free service. You can pay for them, but they're also free. But they are third party. They're not the county.
Appreciate that, Eric.
The county could set up something like that, but I would not advise you to take on that.
I know the county previously used Dropbox and then we switched to Teams, and so I would have to check with TSD if that's a possible avenue.
Yeah, I know, yeah, most organizations have policies around that too, so for the same kind of security reasons. But yeah, thank you for your comments, Eric.
And just one additional thing, if you're concerned about the security of the transfer, you could use some sort of digital key signature to whereby the person requesting the document could submit a key, and that could be used to sign the document so that when it's provided, you're assured that it goes to, the only person that can open it is the intended recipient. That might be a little bit extra work, but if you're concerned about transferring a digital file, that might give you greater assurance. But I would encourage you to consider that, because in terms of the concern about 5,000 pages of printed material, someone, of course, could make that kind of recommendation, but I don't think anyone who's serious in regards to, using this data for analysis or any practical application is going to request a paper copy of that size. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments regarding the VRG report? Great. Next is the updates on campaign finances policy.
I haven't had the opportunity to look at the draft policy that Mr. Fernandez provided me this morning, but I can look at it and then have it ready for October 15th.
That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, it's I didn't send it to everyone because I wanted to get legal advice, so that's why it hasn't been shared. Once I get that, we'll make it public. I can say my recommendations aren't anything that's particularly material other than some process stuff, nothing in regard to, first offense, second offense, third offense. I did share the draft with our respective party chairmans to get input from them as well. So if we can do that the 15th, that'd be great. Okay, any additional public comment on those items? Seeing none, let's move on to new business. The first item is the election day poll workers approval, I believe. Yeah.
So we do not have that list for today, so us moving to the 15th, we should have a fully up-to-date one for then. It should have more people on that list by then as well. And I will make sure that they know at the end of this meeting today that we will be needing it for the 15th.
Is that the same with the Nets item as well?
That was our discussion that we had earlier, and we decided we'll meet on the 15th.
Okay.
What about the early voting poll workers? Are they already approved?
Early voting poll workers were approved at the last meeting.
All right, that's what I thought. Okay, just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Okay, then the
And
last
just as a quick reminder on that, we will need to separate the student poll workers because they require an independent approval by the election board, and that approval has to be unanimous. And so we should separate student poll workers out from the list of the other poll workers.
Great. Okay, the last item is the update from Molly on records requests.
Okay, this is kind of an update based and a question for election board guidance, I guess. So there's been questions about the availability of a CSV file. In speaking with the public access counselor, if we have a file in a specific format or have ability to produce that file in a specific format and a requester makes a request for that file in that format, we should provide it in that format. So if there's a request for a CSV file and we can produce a CSV file, we should produce a CSV file. So I guess I am providing this guidance to let everyone know that is what I believe access to public records law states. Now, if these requests are received via access to public records, I think this creates a small issue for party chairs who wish to receive it on election night, because if they have to do an access to public records request, they're not going to get it on election night. So I don't know if the election board would like to consider a policy or some things to say that party chairs should receive the file in this format on election night. And that's something for maybe you to ponder, and I'm happy to draft something based on guidance, for October 15th. But I know this was a concern expressed by party chairs at a recent meeting, and I followed up on it. I think Hart Civic is saying we have the ability to produce that file. Access to Public Records saying if you have the ability, you should produce it.
Would that apply to media groups and anyone else that makes a request?
It would. If those requests are coming in, though, via Access to Public Records, it's the same thing that we just talked about, right? We acknowledge the request in a certain time frame, and then we produce it in a reasonable amount of time. Everyone wants that election results as soon as possible, and there's 1,000 things going on that night, and I get it. So I'm just saying, how would the election board like to accommodate this request in comparison with everything else that's going on that night?
Well, if we can provide in that form, what was the CRV? No,
CVS. CSV, sorry.
I get confused too, between the pharmacy and.
But are these requests
Yeah.
for the final results or live results?
That would be final results, because we would not be able to do it until after everything is inputted at the end of the day.
Reason to not provide it in that form, this CSV?
So it would just need to be requested, in my opinion, and kind of like how the VRG-24 is, but the VRG-24 is just for SVRS separately. So if there was a way that you guys wanted to go about having a form that they would fill out saying that this is the documentation they would like, or how we would go about that. But it wouldn't be until after results are inputted into SVRS to go up to the state, because we have to get those printed as a PDF, and then they are hand entered into SVRS the night of.
Molly, were you going to say something? No?
I don't think so. I was pondering.
Because, I mean, there's a difference between, producing the results via CSV that are not necessarily the quote-unquote official.
Correct. Because everything the night of are not official until the provisional ballot hearing day, which is 10 days later.
What's the downside of doing this?
The time of processing it, getting it put into a flash drive, and then distributing it to emails individually.
Any thoughts?
Looks like we have some.
Well, I can talk after you acknowledge them.
Okay, let's go. We've got a couple of folks online that want to speak. Let's go first to DH. I believe if you can unmute, there we go.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is David Henry, Chairman of the Monroe County Democratic Party. I appreciate the effort made to clarify a process by which both parties can make requests of data, whether it's in advance with some sort of paperwork or if it's day of. I do have maybe a question about the day of reporting. In the past, I know both parties have requested updates to SVRS on election day so that both parties can adjust or see the real-time turnout. So I guess I would just ask, as the board is considering adopting a policy where we can make those requests, that we just clarify what content it is, if it is just an update to state SVRS so that both parties can consume it in their respective devices that they use to monitor on election day, or if it is a direct CSV file transfer that we can make on election day. And because frankly, I would like to file a request in advance of election day to get that data at certain points, or day of with an expectation we get it day of. But I want to make sure we're very clear about what that content is, and what we're asking for and what that policy will get us. It's my opinion that any CSV file could be captured real time. And printed out, as we've learned over the past few weeks. But again, I would just ask for some clarity, hopefully by the 15th, if there's something we can put in place. But I'd very much like to either submit for that in advance, if it is a more of an APRA request type behavior, or if it is a courtesy or a documentation that we can do to get a hold of that data if it's available. Thank you.
So if I heard you right, your preference would be able to get live data, at least at certain times throughout the voting time on election day, but that if the request could just be made in advance, then everybody could kind of plan for it? Is that what you're suggesting?
Mr. President, I think so, or otherwise, I would say that as part of this exploration of reportage of data real time, that the county pursue updating the SVRS system periodically during the day. Fortunately, during the primary this year, the clerk was able to process an update in real time to SVRS to let us have the additional data at the state party level in terms of turnout. And I know it's a little garbled on the phone, but what that means is that the update is just occurring internally with the Monroe County to the Secretary of State's office, so that both parties can then review in real their connections to SVRS at the state level. That would satisfy my requirement. I wouldn't necessarily need that printout, but if that's not possible, and if it is just a request for CSV at periodic points in terms of certain data, that we have that in a policy, we understand what we're asking for and what we can get a hold of. But right now it sounds like we don't have any of that written down, so I guess I'm just trying to provide some framing, if that makes sense.
Can I ask David a question real quick?
Sure.
Yes.
David, can you clarify, are you speaking about the list of who has checked in throughout the day?
Yes, that's one aspect of this data set. So
that will actually come from the e-poll books, which is through No Ink. So we would have to pull that data from there throughout the day. We have done that in the past where we just pull the information either at noon or we pull it 3 times out of the day. That they've always just requested that information in advance of Election Day. They were put into a email chain the day before so that it's all there, and then we just send those links updated to them. That I do believe comes in a CSV or otherwise a Excel on that one.
Okay. I would ask that in whatever policy the board considers to make on this, that be actually written down and kind of sanctified, because right now it is an email requesting that is done. So we might as well just put it in writing that that's one of the behaviors or ways by which the board is releasing data of this kind. Because right now that is all done over request and courtesy over email. Does that make sense?
Great. Okay. Do we have a question in the room? Yes.
Yes, hi. My name is Dave Askins with the B Square Bulletin, and I just want to advocate for the idea that whatever processes or policies that are developed around this topic, that they be geared towards any live human being as opposed to political parties. In other words, I don't think political parties should have any status whatsoever within these policies as special entities. Anybody, members of the media, average rank and file residents should have the same status as the chair of either of the 2 political parties, in my view. Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely agree.
We have a question online, I think that's Eric again.
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. My name is Eric Ost, and I wanted to support the provision of election results in CSV format. I did some research in regards to this matter several years ago, and what I discovered is that the software that's being licensed by the county has a documented process for exporting election results in CSV format. And so in the same step that is currently being used to print to file in PDF format election results at several points during the tabulation of ballots, the same process could be used for exporting a CSV file containing that same data, and then it could be distributed in the same manner via email, on a website. But I think that that would be enormously helpful. In the work that I've done for going on 2 decades, it is possible to convert a PDF file format into a CSV file format. But the fact that the software that the county licenses, both for ballot tabulation as well as apparently the e-poll book, exports CSV file format, I would request that that format be offered if, you know, to provide this information. And I, again, would offer if the election board would like, I'd be happy to work with Ms. Turner King and the clerk's office and TSD to help identify a workflow that would make this both practicable and just easy, sustainable for that purpose. Thank you.
I do want to make sure real quick that we're clear that the actual results are tabulated at the end of the day, which is at 6 o'clock when the polls close. The report that would be coming from No Ink and ePulse has no results. It's just strictly who has checked in to vote.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that's very clear,
Right.
so that we aren't anticipating there to be results throughout the day. Instead, it's just who has registered
Absolutely.
throughout the day.
Yeah, I appreciate
I
that clarification.
apologize for that confusion. I understand that the results are only reported after they're, you know, begin to be counted. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure it's clear for everybody watching.
Okay. So that, so if my math is right, we're going to have a really big agenda on October 15th. We have at least
And I will,
7 items.
and I'm going to get those policies. I will try to get to the election board the policies no later than the 10th, so you have the opportunity to review them prior to the election board meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have a lot to cover. Okay, so with that, we have an opportunity for public comment. Speakers want to address the board. You have 3 minutes. Just give us your name.
Hi, yes, my name is Pearl Vennard. I'm an IU student. Ooh. I'm an IU student. I'm a senior at IU. I'm just coming up to talk about how Ann Island should be back in the discussion. So I've been at the county commissioners meeting, and I would like to say accessibility is a really big issue that hasn't really been talked about with Ann Island and the live database that's going to be for election results. Numbers are hard to break down, things understanding what's going to come out of this election. So having those visuals that Ann Island's offering are going to be really important. Be able to compare and contrast, also working on elections at IU, being able to have those visuals to be able to send out to IU students being like, this is who turned out to vote, this is why. Understanding also education for later down the road as to why IU students should vote and like the turnout we had this upcoming election. Also, it's a 3-year contract as of the last contract I saw. So being able to let Ann Island, that's already had 8 counties that highly recommend them, have already been running for several years, and let the county work on something for the next 3, letting this contract run, seeing if we should revisit it once the 3 years comes out, or let the county continue working on something in the background. Let them have 3 years to build something that Ann Island's been working on and working with since 2008. And then also transparency is a really big deal. understanding that what happened in July, yes, it didn't affect election results or election or anything like that, but understanding that there's still a sense of not being able to trust the information and things like that, and knowing that it could happen again. So just, looking at Ann Island, looking at the new contract, and understanding that it should still be up for discussion. Yes.
I appreciate that. Just for clarity, that is not on our agenda.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you though, appreciate it. We have another speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Monroe County Commissioner, and I hope you're all having a good day. I'm here to talk with you about two recent contracts that the Monroe County Election Supervisor brought before the Board of Commissioners. The first was a contract for advertising early elections with Comcast. I questioned Comcast's reach, given that a number of people in Monroe County have cut their ties with Comcast. They're now getting their internet through other providers. And I'm all for advertising early voting. I think it's critical to get people out. But I wish we'd gotten this contract earlier so we could have been discussing additional ways to do some of that outreach, especially to the students that live in the IU dorms. The second is for a contract with an Island LLC to provide information on voter turnout and voter totals. Now, I've heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, that the clerk may try to unilaterally sign a contract with an Island. By statute, she would need to go through a 20-day process and show it is necessary to carry out a constitutional or statutory duty, that she would have the funds appropriated, and that the executive, meaning the county commissioners, can void a contract that is executed without complying with this process. Now, the election supervisor first presented the contract with an Island to the Board of Commissioners at our work session on September the 11th, 2024. At that time, we heard from the Monroe County GIS coordinator, Dr. John Baton, that he could perform the same work without the additional $41,000 cost to the county. The contract was then put on the Commissioner's regular agenda for September 25th. Prior to that meeting, I sent Clerk Brown an email asking multiple questions about the contract. During the meeting, we also heard questions about cybersecurity integrity. I'm here now to ask two questions. Why, Clerk Brown, are you so set on needlessly spending $41,000 of taxpayer money to hire an Island to do work that the county can do? And two, why did this supervisor, the election supervisor, tell us in a recorded public meeting that the election data produced by Hart's Verity software cannot export the data in a comma-separated value or CSV format, when Hart says that this is easily accomplished and the information on how to do this is publicly available, and this was brought to my attention by someone who publicly accessed the Hart's manual. So I really feel like we need people who understand the process and know what's available. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm happy to address the second.
We're not going to get into debate over this. This is public comment time. Yeah, Ness?
I'm Cheryl Langdon. I want to remind everyone in this room that I make no income when I come to these meetings. I spend money to be here. Adding to Kylie's mention about the agenda for today's meeting, I'm bringing attention, there's no agenda posted for today's meeting that I could find on the website. I couldn't find one posted outside on the podium prior to coming in here, so I'm coming in here blind. As well, there seems to be some outdated information concerning candidate forms. That may need to be looked at. Concerning last week's meeting, I want to punctuate what the commissioner just said. It appears that Kylie misled the commissioners last week with her incompetence. I could have informed the commissioners what Hart can and cannot perform because I would have prepared myself prior to the presentation to the commissioners. If I wasn't prepared, I would have been honest about it. Dave Askin's edited piece 2 days ago, it provided some important information that commissioners could have received had Kylie done her job. But Kylie misled the commissioners in her incompetence. That's what she does. There needs to be an investigation to what happened last year. Kylie needs to resign, Clerk Brown needs to resign, and the level of dysfunction at Election Central has become a mess. We are paying an exorbitant amount of money, taxpayer money, to incompetent, secretive people going on fancy vacations without performing for the taxpayers with transparent productivity and service. There needs to be an investigation into events that occurred last year, and Kylie Ferris and Clerk Nicole Brown, you two need to step down. Thank you.
Okay, we have some speakers online. It looks like the first one is DS.
Okay, this is Ralph Shaw. Am I getting through this time? Okay, so I'm trying to
Yes.
say something. Okay, so I'm trying to let you know that I'm offering to take something off of the agenda or things that the election board might need to work on. I have the establishment document for the Vote Center Study Committee, and back in August of 2023, they said the term of the committee is to serve at the pleasure of the Board of Elections until the completion of their work, unless otherwise extended by the election board by a majority vote. So there's no need to extend the appointment of that committee.
Great, thank you. Next is E.
Good afternoon again. My name is Eric Ost, and I wanted to just express sincere appreciation for all the work that everyone's doing. And I also wanted to express support for consideration of engaging the county's GIS department for publication of election results. I have interfaced with the staff at the GIS department and found them to be extremely competent and in earnest, and I am confident that they could facilitate the publication of election results for this year's election. So I would ask you to consider that rather than hiring a third-party company. And to speak to the issue of integrity and trustworthiness, I would suggest that our elected governments and the officials are probably the most trustworthy, and so I would encourage you to consider using or engaging the GIS department for publication of election results. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. Next up is DH. I believe that's Chairman Henry again.
Yeah, good afternoon. I apologize. I know the meeting's going late. I was unable to get in earlier during the Vote Center Study Committee discussion to make a nomination for the vacancy from the Democratic side. Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want to take that now or on the 15th, given that we're in public comment, but I'm happy to make the recommendation either today or on the 15th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have, I think that, I don't see anyone else's hand up. Oh, we do. The courthouse has a hand up. Oh, it's our surveyor.
Yes, are you able to hear me? This is Tron Enright Randolph, the Monroe County Surveyor.
Go ahead.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that you're able. I just wanted to kind of bring up, because we keep referring to the term GIS. The GIS division is housed in the Monroe County Surveyor's office. And I really think that this discussion should be kind of pared down to, two different directions. Is the pursuit within Island what is needed, and kind of have that discussion, and is the capabilities of the GIS in Monroe County can host data. I just really want to make it clear it's two different types of services. I have talked to all parties that I think that are needed to be part of that conversation. The county commissioners, the clerk, and even voter registration. This is our first time talking to the election board, and I just really want to make it clear that I feel like these are two different types of discussions that need to take place. And I appreciate everyone's advocacy. I totally have been aware of this and made our GIS division in this office available for questions, but not recommendations. And I just think that the conversations need to be paralleled, but not grouped together. And if you want to discuss how we can be of service, we're more than welcome to make ourselves available. But that's just what I wanted to bring up. And I keep trying to, pare these down to two different discussions. And I just felt like this was my opportunity to address the election board. So thank you.
Thank you, Tron. Appreciate it. We have a comment from Molly.
Well, Molly has a comment that she received by email that she just needs to read into the record.
Thank you.
So it says, Molly, I'm requesting a huge favor in the issue of polling sites for the Clear Creek precincts. Can you please present my concerns and suggestions at the election board meeting on Thursday? I will be in Washington, D.C. and unable to attend. First-hand observations. I worked the primary and was overwhelmed by the number of voters who did not know the polling site had changed. I should have not been surprised since I reside in a Clear Creek precinct and only knew about the change since I was working in the election. 2, folks had various ways of finding Souls Harbor Church, and when they finally arrived, they ranged from frustrated to angry, bordering on abusive. 3, eventually a sign was posted at Southside Christian, and that helped, but still meant extra driving time. Concerns. 1, my primary concern is for the safety of the poll workers, especially the clerks. Full disclosure, my wife will be a clerk, so I'm biased towards safety. 2, also of concern is the issue of election integrity. As poll workers, we pride ourselves on the integrity of elections, and any perceived interference chips away at that integrity. Suggestions. 1, send a postcard to residents affected by the change from Southside Christian. There are probably 2 other precincts affected. Inform the folks in a straightforward manner and do not force them to go to a website, use a QR code, or anything fancy. 2, provide a phone number to call with questions along with a reminder about poll place hours. 3, enhance the security of this location. My perception is that our sheriff is limited in his ability to respond to an issue of urgency. If you have any questions or wish to discuss more, I am best contacted by cell or text at, and then he provides his cell phone number. You can see that I'm copying Mr. Davenport, the inspector at this site, if that makes it easier to contact him with questions. As a side note, the members of Soul Harbor's Church were fantastic hosts. Delicious pastries, abundance coffee. Need I say more? Sincerely, Larry Moore, and then he provides his contact information.
Thank you for doing that.
We did receive this email in our office as well. There were postcards that were sent out in the primary, and we are sending them out again in the general. We're waiting for voter registration to close so that we can make sure that every individual voter who has registered will get a card with their precinct, their location, and any information on how to contact the voter registration office if they have questions. And then the only other thing I wanted to say was I am wanting to say thank you to all of our poll workers that have opted up to work in this election so far. They are helping us out tremendously, and we couldn't do it without them. Also, I want to say thank you to Nicole for helping us out as much as she possibly can with the craziness of both the clerk's office and voter registration office to ensure that everything is going smoothly. And then lastly, just for everybody in my office as well for helping me not go crazy during this crazy time of being super busy and just being able to be a helping hand as much as they can with me going back and forth from meetings and trainings and everything else. Also to the election board, thank you guys for being there as an option to help us. You, Judith, especially, because you've helped us out quite a bit with getting applications and ballots out during this time. And I just want to say we are excited to see all the voters, and we will see you before the election, but won't be doing too much before then. So thank you, guys.
Okay. So I believe that concludes our business today. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
Adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you.